man who openly opposed Germanicus at every turn. Germanicus himself believed Piso wanted him dead, and on his deathbed, weak but defiant, he spoke to Agrippina with the last of his strength. "Be brave and avenge me." Those words didn't break Agrippina. They activated her. If you're still watching at this point, comment, "I'm still here." Most people click away before now. Prove you're different. Germanicus died in Agrippina's arms. A hero stolen, a future destroyed, a family shattered. But Rome didn't just lose a general. Rome lost hope. The streets filled with grief. Men and women cried openly. Soldiers punched walls, unable to process the loss of the man they believed would change the empire. But Agrippina, she didn't hide. She didn't collapse. She didn't retreat behind palace doors. She stood tall. She faced the empire. And she carried Germanicus' ashes back to Rome in full view of the public. The journey was long and painful, yet everywhere she went, crowds gathered. People fell silent. Children whispered her name. Mothers held their sons closer. Soldiers saluted in reverence. Agrippina was not just a grieving widow. She was a symbol of Rome's broken heart and Rome's burning anger. She didn't speak. She didn't beg. She didn't need to. Her silence screamed louder than any speech. When she stepped onto Roman soil, the entire city erupted in mourning. Shops closed. Temples filled. Marketplaces emptied. Rome had lost its future emperor. But Agrippina? She had lost everything. Now pause for a moment. Can you imagine being in her position? If someone killed your loved one, would you risk everything to expose the truth? Type yes or no below. Agrippina didn't wait for Rome to act. She didn't trust the system, because she knew the truth. In Rome, justice was not given. Justice was taken. She stood in the Senate's chambers, uninvited but unavoidable, and demanded a trial for Piso. Imagine this scene. A woman who should have been ignored, dismissed, silenced, standing in front of the most powerful men in the empire. And none of them could look her in the eye. Her courage embarrassed them. Her determination frightened them. Her presence challenged everything they believed women should be. The Senate opened an investigation. Piso was recalled to Rome. The pressure mounted. The empire trembled. But powerful men do not fall quietly. During the trial, evidence disappeared. Witnesses changed their stories. Documents were altered. And the emperor himself, Tiberius, remained suspiciously distant. Agrippina saw through it all. This wasn't incompetence. This wasn't confusion. This was protection. Piso wasn't acting alone. Someone higher, someone untouchable, was pulling the strings. Comment, "I see the game." If you can already sense how deep this conspiracy goes. Agrippina pushed harder. Harder than any woman in Rome had ever dared. She cornered senators. She confronted officials. She forced the political world to face the truth they were trying desperately to bury. And then, before the trial could reveal the full truth, Piso committed suicide. Or at least, that's what the official report claimed. But Rome didn't believe it. Agrippina didn't believe it. And deep down, neither did the Senate. Piso died because dead men don't talk. Dead men can't confess. Dead men can't expose emperors. Agrippina wasn't satisfied. She didn't get justice. She got silence. And silence is not justice. If you're invested in the story, hit the subscribe button now so you never miss the next chapter of power, betrayal, and revenge. Agrippina's influence skyrocketed after the trial. She became Rome's center of attention. Crowds cheered for her. Women idolized her. Soldiers respected her. Politicians feared her. She was no longer Germanicus' wife. She was a political force. A force too powerful to ignore, and too dangerous to let live freely. Her rising influence made one thing clear. Agrippina wasn't done. She wasn't finished. She wasn't backing down. She was coming for the truth. She was coming for the empire. She was coming for the men who stole her husband's life. And the men in power were coming for her too. This is where the real war begins. Agrippina didn't just defeat Piso. She had done something far more dangerous. She embarrassed the emperor. Tiberius watched as her influence grew. He watched her walk through Rome like a living symbol of justice. He watched senators whisper her name with admiration. He watched soldiers salute her with respect they no longer showed him. And he realized something terrifying. Agrippina was becoming more powerful than the emperor himself. Before we go deeper, hit the like button if you agree that power always fears the truth. Tiberius was not a man of emotion. He was a man of calculation. A man who believed that threats should be eliminated, not confronted. And Agrippina, ambitious, popular, unstoppable, was the greatest threat he had ever faced. But Tiberius made one fatal mistake. He didn't attack Agrippina directly. He attacked her family. He understood that a mother's strength is tied to her children. So he set out to destroy the dynasty she was fighting to protect. His weapon of choice? Lucius Aelius Sejanus, a man both feared and hated. A man who had climbed to power through manipulation and cruelty. A man who dreamed of becoming emperor himself. And to reach that throne, he needed to eliminate every obstacle, every rival, every descendant of Germanicus. If you're still watching, comment, "I see the plot now." Most people drop off before this part. You're not most people. Sejanus began his attack with precision. He spread rumors, whispers of betrayal, accusations of conspiracy, lies crafted to tear Agrippina's reputation apart from the inside. Behind closed doors, he told senators that Agrippina wanted the throne, that she planned to overthrow Tiberius, that her children were being groomed as rebels, that she was dangerous, uncontrollable, and too powerful for a woman. But Agrippina would not bend. She refused to be silent. She refused to be humble. She refused to step aside. Every time Sejanus struck at her name, Agrippina struck back with truth. Every time he tried to silence her, she spoke louder. Every time he tried to weaken her, she grew stronger. Her courage became a problem. Her defiance became a threat. Her survival became an insult. If you respect Agrippina's determination, hit subscribe so you never miss stories of women who refuse to disappear. Sejanus adjusted his strategy. He realized he could not break Agrippina, so he targeted the people she loved most, her sons. The sons of Germanicus were everything Rome admired. Young, honorable, intelligent, direct heirs of a beloved hero. And that made them dangerous. Sejanus began to poison Tiberius's mind with fears of rebellion. He accused Agrippina's sons of plotting against the emperor. He claimed they were gathering support from the army. He insisted they wanted revenge for their father. The emperor believed him. And suddenly, Agrippina found herself fighting a war she never prepared for. A war for her children's lives. Drop a comment. Would you fight an emperor to protect your kids? Yes or a no? The attacks intensified. Roman citizens began to notice spies watching Agrippina's house. Secret messengers followed her every move. Her friends disappeared mysteriously. Allies abandoned her out of fear. Doors that once opened for her now closed silently. Rome was turning against her, not because she was guilty, but because she was powerful. The empire had decided. Agrippina must fall. And fall she did, but not in the way her enemies expected. During a public gathering, as Agrippina stood before one of Tiberius's officials, she refused to be silent. She confronted him openly, not with screams, not with tears, but with dignity. She accused him of corruption. She accused him of injustice. She accused him of participating in the plot to destroy her family. The official was furious. He struck her across the face with a whip. Blood dripped down her cheek. The crowd gasped. And Agrippina did not flinch. She stood there wounded, bleeding, unbroken, and stared directly into the eyes of her attacker. That moment sealed her fate. Agrippina could not be humiliated. She could not be controlled. She could not be intimidated. So the emperor made a decision. Agrippina must be removed from Rome. She was arrested, dragged from her home, separated from her children, stripped of her titles, cut off from her allies, and exiled to a remote island, far from the city she once commanded. If this moment shocked you, comment, "This is brutal." Agrippina now lived trapped in isolation. No servants, no comfort, no voice, no power. Her food was rationed. Her health deteriorated. Her body weakened. But her spirit? Untouched. Even in exile, Agrippina remained a threat. News of her suffering spread through Rome. People whispered her name. Veterans remembered Germanicus. Women admired her strength. Men feared her return. And Tiberius knew, as long as Agrippina lived, the empire would never be free from her shadow. So he tried to erase her. Documents were rewritten. Her achievements were removed. Her presence was forbidden. Her name banned from public speeches. But history has a strange habit. It remembers those who refuse to be forgotten. Before we move to the final part of this story, hit the like button if Agrippina's strength impresses you. And tell me in the comments, do you think she deserved this punishment? Yes or a no? Sejanus continued his attacks. He targeted her sons next. One was executed under false charges. Another was imprisoned until he died of starvation. Her family tree, the legacy of Germanicus, was being cut branch by branch. But fate has an interesting way of balancing the scales. Sejanus, the mastermind behind the destruction of Agrippina's life, suddenly fell from power. Tiberius turned against him. The Senate condemned him. He was executed, publicly, brutally, with no mercy. Agrippina wasn't there to see it. But Rome felt the shift. The empire had destroyed a mother, but it had not destroyed her destiny. This is where the story takes its sharpest turn. Because despite everything, despite exile, humiliation, starvation, and betrayal, Agrippina would rise again. And she would rise higher than any woman Rome had ever seen. Agrippina's enemies believed exile would break her, that isolation would silence her, that humiliation would end her story. But they forgot one thing. Legends are not defeated by suffering. Legends are forged by it. While Agrippina languished on her island, Rome itself was changing. Tiberius, the emperor, who feared her, the man who allowed her sons to be destroyed, was growing old, paranoid, and isolated. He abandoned the capital, withdrawing to his villa on Capri. He ruled from afar, cut off from reality, drowning in fear and suspicion. The empire was rotting, and no one trusted the emperor anymore. Before we continue, hit the like button if you believe karma always finds its way back. Tiberius's paranoia was so intense that he no longer knew who to trust. He feared betrayal from every corner, and this fear became his undoing. But while Tiberius decayed in luxury, someone else quietly rose in power. Someone whose bloodline burned with destiny. Caligula, son of Germanicus, Agrippina's boy. He grew up surrounded by soldiers who adored his father. He grew up hearing stories of Germanicus's honor, bravery, and kindness. Everywhere he went, people whispered, "That is the son of the man who should have been emperor." Caligula carried the memory of Germanicus like a torch, but he also carried the trauma of seeing his family destroyed. A dangerous combination. Tiberius feared him too, but he kept Caligula close, hoping to control him. He had no idea the future he was handing over. If you're still watching, comment, "This story is wild," because it truly is. When Tiberius finally died, Rome shook with relief. The empire had suffered long enough. People wanted a new leader, a fresh start, a reminder of the greatness they once believed in. They chose Germanicus's son. Caligula became emperor. Rome erupted in celebration. Crowds filled the streets. People lit torches. Veterans raised their swords in salute. Children were lifted onto shoulders to witness history. And in the middle of this wave of hope, this tidal wave of public love, Agrippina returned. Not in chains, not as a prisoner, but as the mother of the emperor. Imagine the moment. A woman exiled in disgrace, now welcomed home in triumph. The very Senate that once feared her, now bowed before her. The empire that tried to erase her, now needed her. If you believe in comebacks, smash that like button right now. Agrippina's comeback is one of the greatest in history. But here is the truth no one expected. Power does not heal wounds. Sometimes, it deepens them. Caligula, once the hopeful son of a hero, now held absolute control. And absolute power does not reveal character. It corrupts it. At first, Caligula honored Agrippina, restored her property, restored her name, restored her status. But as his rule continued, something shifted. The boy who once idolized his mother now feared her influence, feared her intelligence, feared her ambition. History is filled with powerful men threatened by powerful women. Caligula was no different. He began shutting her out, removing her from important decisions, erasing her influence behind the scenes. Agrippina had fought emperors before, but fighting her own son was different. This time, she was not the grieving widow. This time, she was not the exiled mother. This time, she had tasted power, and Rome had tasted her leadership. But Caligula could not accept sharing the spotlight. He stripped her privileges, banished her from the palace, ordered that she be removed from public events, her portraits taken down, her name erased from dedications, her presence hidden away. Imagine the pain. Not exile, not starvation, not humiliation, but rejection from the child she had sacrificed everything to protect. If you feel for her, type, "That's painful," in the comments. But history was not finished with Agrippina. Not yet. Because Caligula's reign spiraled quickly. Cruelty, Chaos, fear, madness. Rome realized they had replaced one tyrant with another, and like all tyrants, Caligula met a violent end, assassinated by his own guards. Agrippina, once again, stood in the eye of a political storm. But this time, she had one more card to play. Nero, her youngest son, quiet, thoughtful, often overlooked, but carrying the same imperial bloodline that once lifted Caligula to the throne. Agrippina saw an opportunity others ignored, and she seized it with unmatched intelligence. While Rome scrambled for a new leader, Agrippina began weaving alliances. She approached generals. She negotiated with senators. She secured the support of the Praetorian Guard. She outmaneuvered rivals who underestimated her. And then, with perfect precision, she positioned Nero as the next emperor. It worked. Nero became ruler of Rome, and Agrippina became the most powerful woman the ancient world had ever seen. Not as a wife, not as a prisoner, not as a victim, but as the architect of an emperor. Let me ask you directly, do you think Agrippina was fighting for justice or fighting for power? Comment power or justice below. Agrippina now held influence over military decisions, political reforms, and imperial policies. Rome had never seen a woman stand this close to the heart of power. Some admired her brilliance. Others feared her ambition. But none could deny her impact. She had survived the death of her husband. She had survived exile. She had survived betrayal. She had survived the rise and fall of emperors. And she had risen every time stronger. Her enemies wanted her forgotten. History refused. Agrippina became a symbol, a woman who would not be silenced, a mother who would not surrender, a strategist who outplayed an empire, a survivor who bent fate to her will. And whether you see her as a hero, a villain, or something in between, her power cannot be denied. If this story gripped you from beginning to end, if Agrippina's journey shocked you, or if you love learning the real truth behind history's most dramatic lives, hit the like button right now. Subscribe to the channel. We tell the stories other channels are too afraid to tackle. And before you scroll away, drop a comment below answering one question. Was Agrippina fighting for justice or fighting for power? Your answer shapes the next video.